Games in the 90s and the early 2000s didn't need Ultra HD graphics to get under your skin. Whether it was janky polygon faces, cryptic dialogues, or just a vibe that stuck with you. Certain NPCs from that era managed to haunt us in ways that modern games, with all their technical wizardry, still struggle to match. Before we dive into the digital graveyard, don't forget to like and subscribe for more eerie nostalgia, gaming deep dives, and stories that'll make you want to relax, unwind, and rewind. Starting at number 10 is the Scissor Man and Clock Tower, 1995. Human entertainment has made something genuinely unsettling with Bobby Barrows, better known as the Scissor Man. In an era when most horror games relied on combat, Clock Towers stripped you of any weapons and forced you to run, hide, and hope those massive shears didn't find you first. What made the Scissor Man truly terrifying wasn't his design, though those oversized scissors dragging behind him certainly helped. It was his unpredictability. He could appear anywhere at any time, with that distinctive scraping sound that meant you had seconds to find somewhere to hide. No dramatic music buildup, no scripted jump scares, just the sudden realization that death was shambling towards you, and your only option was to run. The game's point-and-click interface made every escape feel desperate and clumsy. You'd frantically click on doors that might be locked, hide behind furniture that might not conceal you, all while that terrible scraping grew louder. Players developed genuine anxiety around that sound. Some reported hearing it in their sleep weeks after playing. Bobby represented something primal. The fear of being hunted by something relentless and inhuman. His childlike appearance twisted into something monstrous made him even more disturbing. This wasn't some cosmic evil or supernatural force, just a broken person with scissors, which somehow felt infinitely more real and threatening. Next at number 9 is the mysterious woman, Zombie Chick, in Earthbound 1995. HAL Laboratory and Nintendo crafted one of gaming's most unsettling trap scenarios with the mysterious woman in Threed. She appears as a blonde woman in sunglasses and underwear, approaching Ness and Paula with an offer that should have raised every red flag imaginable. For players encountering this in 1995, the implication was uncomfortable enough. But the reality was far worse. Following her leads to a hotel room ambush where zombies swarmed the party, the woman wasn't just suspicious, she was bait, either controlled by the undead or willingly collaborating with them. What appeared to be a bizarre adult situation revealed itself as a calculated trap designed to capture children. Someone or something understood human psychology well enough to use attraction and curiosity as weapons. The mysterious woman represented every stranger danger scenario parents warned about, but twisted through Earthbound's surreal lens. Years later, players still debate whether she was a victim of mind control or a willing accomplice. Either interpretation is disturbing. She was either another casualty of the cosmic horror infecting the world, or someone who chose to help monsters hunt children. You never knew if you should pity her or fear her. Number 8 brings us Dahlia Gillespie in Silent Hill 1991. Team Silent understood that the most effective horror comes from characters who feel simultaneously familiar and wrong. Dahlia Gillespie appeared to be a helpful local, offering cryptic guidance to Harry Mason as he searched for his missing daughter. But something about her felt off from the very first encounter. Dahlia was responsible for much of the supernatural horror plaguing Silent Hill, having used her own daughter Alessa in occult rituals that transformed the town into a manifestation of psychological trauma. But players didn't know this initially. They just felt uncomfortable around her without understanding why. Her dialogue felt scripted in the worst way, like someone reading from cue cards while pretending to be concerned. She delivered these apocalyptic statements with the emotional weight of discussing the weather. This disconnect between content and delivery created an uncanny valley effect that made her deeply unsettling. The revelation of her true nature felt inevitable rather than shocking. Of course, this strange woman with the hollow eyes and forced concern was behind everything. The horror wasn't in the twist. It was actually in how long you trusted someone who radiated wrongness from the moment you met her. At number 7 is the Merchant in Resident Evil 4, 2005. Wait, Resident Evil 4 was released in 2005? Technically outside our 90s time frame, but the Merchant's design philosophy and that unsettling presence trace directly back to the 90s tradition of NPCs who exist in moral gray areas. Actually, let's just replace him with a truer 90s haunter. The fortune teller in Clock Tower in 1995. Beyond the Scissor Man, Clock Tower featured NPCs who existed in that uncomfortable space between helpful and sinister. The fortune teller in the town offered cryptic warnings about your fate, but her predictions had this uncomfortable habit of coming true in the worst possible ways. She'd appear at seemingly random moments, always with the same unsettling smile, always with knowledge she shouldn't possess. Everyone can agree that it was genuinely disturbing how accurate her predictions were. She became this oracle of doom that you could ignore but desperately wanted to avoid. Players would actively try to skip her encounters, but the game would find ways to force you into her presence. Her very existence suggested that your fate was predetermined, that all your struggling and hiding was ultimately meaningless, because someone already knew how your story would end. And number 6 is Princess Ruto in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, 1998. Nintendo created something accidentally disturbing with Princess Ruto, though they probably didn't intend for her to become a source of existential dread for an entire generation of players. The Zora Princess starts as a bratty child who treats Link like a servant, demanding he carry her through the belly of Lord Jabu Jabu. Annoying, but manageable. Then you complete the Water Temple as adult Link and discover that this same character, now grown, considers herself engaged to you based on childhood events. The horror wasn't supernatural, no, it was social. Here was an NPC who had built her entire romantic future around interactions you, as the player, had no choice in. The game never asked if you wanted to marry Princess Ruto, it simply informed you that she decided you would, and there was nothing you could do about it. For many players, this was their first encounter with the concept of unwanted romantic attention in media. Princess Ruto became a symbol of every relationship assumption that makes you deeply uncomfortable. Every person who decides they know what's best for your future without consulting you. Don't get me wrong, Princess Ruto's devotion was presented as admirable, not stalkerish, which made the whole situation feel even more wrong. Breaking into the top 5 is Lisa Garland in Silent Hill 1995. Lisa Garland is a nurse you meet in Silent Hill, seemingly having no recollection of why the hospital is filled with monsters and why all the people have vanished. She becomes Harry's primary companion through much of the game, offering comfort and normality in an increasingly surreal nightmare. But there's something not quite right about Lisa from the beginning. She's too calm about the situation, too accepting of the impossible circumstances surrounding them. While Harry panics and questions reality, Lisa simply goes along with everything as if monster-infested hospitals are perfectly normal. The revelation hits like psychological warfare. Lisa has been dead the entire time. When she finally realizes the truth, her breakdown is genuinely heartbreaking. She was the one person in Silent Hill who seemed normal, who seemed safe, who seemed like she might help you make sense of everything. Her death scene remains one of the most emotionally devastating moments in 90s gaming, but we will come back to her later. Number 4 brings the Moon Children in The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask 2000. Technically released in 2000 but developed through the late 90s, Majora's Mask pushed the boundaries of what Nintendo would put in a family-friendly game. The Moon Children represent the game at its most psychologically disturbing. These 5 children wait under a tree in the final area, each wearing the face of a boss you've defeated. They speak in riddles about the nature of friendship, games, and what it means to be truly alone. What makes them truly haunting is how they force Link, and by extension the player, to confront the game's central themes of isolation and meaninglessness. Throughout your adventure, you help people, you've made connections, and you save the day. But here are these children suggesting that none of it really mattered. They represent the existential dread that lurks beneath childhood games. What if your friends don't really like you? What if you're not actually the hero? What if nothing you do matters because everyone forgets about it anyway? The Moon Children turned Majora's Mask for an adventure about saving the world into a meditation on whether heroism has any meaning when the universe itself seems indifferent to suffering. Alright, moving into the top 3, we've got the Happy Mask Salesman in The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask 2000. The Happy Mask Salesman appears friendly and helpful, but there's something deeply unsettling about his exaggerated expressions and impossible knowledge. He knows about Link's transformation into a Deku scrub. He knows about Majora's mask, and he seems to know far more about the supernatural forces at work than he ever explains. His face goes through expressions that feel too extreme, too theatrical. When he's happy, his smile stretches unnaturally wide. When he's angry, his face contorts into something genuinely frightening. There's no middle ground with him, only intense emotions that feel performed rather than genuine. You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you? The line became iconic, but it's deeply haunting when you think about it. He's not asking, he's stating a fact. How does he know what happened to Link? And why does he seem almost pleased about it? His final appearance, when he simply vanishes after getting his mask back, confirms that he was never really human to begin with. He was something else wearing the appearance of helpfulness, and you'll never know what he actually wanted or why he helped you at all. At number 2 is Giygas in Earthbound 1995. Earthbound's final boss, Giygas, is no longer the wielder of evil. He has become the embodiment of evil itself, which he cannot control on his own. What should have been a climactic battle against a cosmic villain became something far more disturbing. Giygas presents itself as a face twisted in pain, a being without rationality or awareness, whose very existence spreads agony itself to, well, including itself. The graphics, limited by Super Nintendo hardware, somehow made this more terrifying rather than less. The swirling abstract forms suggested something that couldn't be fully comprehended or contained within the game's visual system. The battle itself breaks the rules established throughout the rest of Earthbound. Your attacks do nothing. Traditional RPG logic fails completely. The only way to damage Giygas is through Paula's prayer command. Not magic, not weapons, but literal prayer. The sound design pushed the Super Nintendo's audio capabilities to create something genuinely weird. Distorted screams, impossible breathing sounds, audio that felt like it was transmitted from somewhere far more horrifying than a video game should be able to reach. An urban legend exists that suggests that the final battle with Giygas in Earthbound was an alien abortion, though this is being debunked by the localization team. But the fact that players create this theory shows how deeply the encounter affected them. I think Giygas worked because it represented pure suffering without meaning or purpose. Not evil with a plan, not villain with motivations, just anguish given form, spreading pain because that's all it knows how to do. For many players, this was their first encounter with the concept of suffering without redemption or meaning. Alright, at number 1 we return to Lisa Garland in Silent Hill 1999, but specifically to her final scene, which deserves recognition as perhaps the most psychologically devastating NPC moment of the 90s. After spending the entire game as Harry's companion and the player's source of comfort in Silent Hill's nightmare, Lisa finally realizes the truth about herself. She's been dead all along, another victim to the town's supernatural corruption, trapped in denial about her own nature. The scene where she discovers blood seeping from her skin is masterfully constructed horror. You watch someone confront the reality of their own death, see them break down as they understand they've been living a lie. "I'm the same as them," she whispers, and you realize that the one person who felt safe was just as trapped and doomed as everyone else. But the real horror comes next. Lisa, overwhelmed by the revelation, reaches out to Harry and to the player for comfort. She tries to embrace him, seeking human connection in her moment of greatest terror. Harry recoils. He backs away from her as she transforms into something monstrous, leaving her to face her fate alone. The game forces you as the player to abandon someone who trusted you, who helped you, who needed you in their darkest moment. Lisa represented every person we failed to help when they needed it most. She was the friend going through a crisis who we avoided because it made us uncomfortable. She was every person who reached out during their breakdown only to be met with silence or rejection. Lisa Garland taught an entire generation of gamers that sometimes the most horrible thing isn't the monster. It's realizing you're the person who walks away when someone needs you most. The NPCs of the 90s stayed with us not because of technical sophistication, but because of how they made us feel. They exploited the gaps in our understanding, the spaces between pixels, where our imagination filled in the most disturbing possibilities. Which NPC from the 90s still gives you chills? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos just like this, so you can keep relaxing, unwinding, and rewinding with us.